We're holding today in Daf Chof Gimel Amud Aleph by V'kenes Asrim B'kesav B'dei Achinim. Okay, the Mishnah said that a Eved Kanani can acquire himself by means of money. The mayor paskin that this money must be given by others. So the Gemara says B'kesav B'dei Achinim in Avalei De'atzmei, which is mashma that the money is given by others. Yes, then the slave can be freed, but not giving money himself. So the Gemara says, "But what are we dealing with over? If we're dealing with a case without his consent, he says, let's see. We heard that the mayor says that it's against the slave's interest to leave his master's authority for freedom because he loses out certain benefits. And you can only act in person's interest in his absence, but one cannot act against the person's interest only in his presence. How can one act against the slave's interest of freedom without his consent? Rather, you must say it's with his consent. It teaches us the dafka through others, yes, through himself, not. We see that a slave has no acquisition without his master. It's impossible for a slave to perform any independent act of kinyan, as everything acquired by him immediately belongs to his master. So he cannot be in a position of money with which he can acquire himself. So the money must be given to his owner by somebody else. It says by the shtar, by means by himself. Mashma that only with himself, not through others. Now, and if the document is produced with the slave's consent, so why is it not effective if it is accepted by others? If you're going to say, what does it mean if he accepts it by himself? It means he also is free if he accepts by himself. But Kamashman teaches the Gita Yadam Echad, that Gita and Yadam come together. Well, like Tony Hachi. And the problem is, the Gemara explains why this interpretation is problematic, because Ramir did not teach this ruling as a time of the Brisa. The time it says that they get a freedom if he accepts it by himself, but not if he accepts for others. Rabbi says, really, the Mishnah is referred to a case where the master received money without the slave's consent. And the acquisition affected with the giving of the money is different. Shani Kesef, why is the money different? Since it acquires him against his will, it acquires him for himself against his will. His consent is not required, despite the fact that it is against his interest to be freed. If also be free without a document if he accepted by others without his consent. This document is discreet, and this document is discreet. The comparison between the acquisition of a slave and his freedom is invalid in the case of a document. As a document of a sale, not similar to the bill of freedom. So here too also, this money is discreet, and this money is discreet, as the money is given for a different purpose in the cases of acquisition and freedom. So it says, however, in any case, the coin itself is evident. There's no noticeable difference between the coin used for the acquisition of a slave and one used for freedom. The same cannot be explained with regards to documents, as particular texts serve specific purposes, and the same document cannot be used for both acquiring a slave and freedom. Rava says, Kesef, with regards to being free by means of money, his master's receipt of the money causes him to be freed. With regards to documents, the receipt of the document by others on behalf of the slave causes him to be freed. And the Chum say that the slave can be freed by means of money given by himself. The Gemara says by means of money given by himself, yes, he can be free, but not like although it was indeed performed without the slave's consent. We learn from the Rabban that say that we heard that it's in the slave's interest to go out from the master's authority to freedom. Why then isn't he freed when others give the money, considering that this change of status is to his advantage? If you're going to say, what does it mean by means of giving by himself? It means even by means of it himself. That there could be an acquisition without his master. It says by the shtar by himself, so why can he be freed through a document if he accepts by himself? If you're going to say, it means also even by others, And it's teaching us that the slave's interest is to go from freedom's authority to freedom. Let us combine them and teach them together. That by means of money, by means of freedom, both by others and both by himself. Rather, because it's clear that when it comes to money, he's freed whether by means of money given by others or whether by means by himself. Ishtar is through others, not through them. And you should always there are three disputes with regard to this matter. There are the opinions of the Meir, the Chum, and Shimon Elazar. What's the reason of Shimon Elazar? Gomer lo lamisha learns lo lamisha ma'isha just like a woman is not divorced until the husband moves the get from his domain to the domain that is not his. So too, the slave is not freed unless the master moves the get to the domain that is not his. Rabbi asked the question. According to Shimon Elazar, what's the halacha? Can a slave appoint a shliach to accept a get, a shichur from the hand of his master? Do we say that it has to be like a woman? It says that a slave can be free with the document, therefore a slave is also like a woman who can appoint shliach. In regards to a woman, she can accept her get herself, so shliach also can accept it. Whereas a slave is different, as he cannot accept his get, so he cannot appoint a get. But the other part, he said, is like a woman, and she can send a shliach. It says these kainim are the shluchim of Hashem. They perform the shluchas as shliach of Hashem. And if you then just remind that there are agents, is there something that we cannot do, but agents can do on our behalf? Since it's also for a non-kain, to serve in the base of English, kainim cannot be considered the shluchim of the Jewish people. But is it true that agents, shluchim, cannot be appointed to perform a task that cannot be done by other people? But in regards to a slave, the EU who's unable to accept his get shichur, but shliach could. Where it says, and this is not so. The difference between the cases is Yisrael, the shachar has covered in the klal. Yidden, regular Yisrael is not involved in the halachas of offerings at all. As a non-kohen, is never performing karbanis. But in regards to Ever Shach B'Gidin Tanya Nidin Advarim Shevim the Kabbalah So it seems that a slave can accept to get shichur of other slaves from the hands of the master of that other slave, but he cannot accept to get shichur from the hands of his own master. The Mishnah says that according to the Meir, the slave can be freed by means of money given by others, but the Chacham hold that he can be freed by means of money given by himself, provided that the money he gives belongs to others. So they're arguing this, that the Meir said ain't king in the Eved B'lei Rabbi. The Meir holds that there's no acquisition for a slave without a master. And also there's no acquisition for a woman without her husband. The Chacham hold that no, that there is. And there's an acquisition for a woman without her husband. Everybody agrees there's no acquisition for a slave without his master. There's no acquisition for a woman without her husband. What we do with there is which others individuals transfer 100 dinars to a slave and said to him, I'm giving this to you on condition that your master has no rights to you. Rabbi Meir holds as a key when the third party said to the Eved Kanani, acquire the money, so the slave acquires his master, immediately acquires. When he says on condition, it's nothing. Once he says his conditions is affected. In a case like this, everyone agrees that a slave acquires the money and his master automatically acquires. Charged to 100 dinars and said to him, here's, and you're free with it. He says that when I acquire the money, the slave acquires it, and the master immediately acquires. He says, he does not transfer the money to the slave himself. On the condition, because he said to him, only on the condition that you are not free. So still on both of them. The Tanya learned that a brisa, and he should pay the Ma'aser Sheni B'lei Chemesh. A woman cannot redeem her husband said the Ma'aser Sheni without adding a fifth. Shimon Elazar and Mishum the Meir, he should pay the Ma'aser Sheni B'lei Chemesh. Chidami, Ilam was the Baal Ma'aser, the Baal Shluchas, the Baal Ka'avdi. What are we doing with her? If we say that she redeems the Meiser Sheni with her husband's money, which she gave for her purpose, and the Meiser belongs to her husband, in this case, she acts as the shliach for her husband, just as he's required to add a chaimish when he redeems, so too she has to. Rather, we're talking about with her money and his Meiser. And this is also difficult. Why? Because Isha Mechamel the Isha. Rather, the act of the Achamana, where another person transferred 100 dinars to her and said to her, I'm not Shatiftalis Meiser. Now, the Ibcha, and if so, then Shaman Lu, we learned the opposite with regard to the issue whether such a Tanai is effective. According to the mere reasoning presented in this case of a slave, anything a woman acquires should be acquired by her husband, which means that it is as though her husband himself redeemed it. How then could a mere rule that a woman's redeems Meiser Sheni with adding 1/5? Addition, the Chum said that the money received by the slave is not immediately acquired by his master, yet they are considered the money received by his wife as belonging to her husband. Or Rabbi says, you have to change. So you have to change the shittas. Don't transfer. Don't change it. Here, Meir's talking about a case that we are dealing with the Meiser she received from her father's house as an inheritance. The Meir, the Tamid Omer Meiser Moment Hektishu, that the Meiser Hektish, like when the husband is not acquired. But Abon Tamid Omer Moment Hektitu, the Chamim go that say that the Meiser is property, his moment is Hektitu, but when the Baal Hilka Shluchas say the Baal Kavin, and therefore she performs with the Shluchas of her husband, must add 1/5.